Welcome in, college basketball fans. I am Travis Branham, a national basketball analyst here at 247 Sports. And today we are joined by North Carolina insider Sherrell McMillan. Rel, you are one of the best insiders across the country when it comes to your team. You know this North Carolina team inside and out. I know me and you have our battles here and there, especially with one right now on the recruiting trail, but we're not going to get into that today. Today we're getting into this North Carolina basketball team, this journey that they've made to the Final Four. From your own perspective, watching these guys from the start to the season, all that they've been through, even dating back to last April Fool's Day when Roy Williams decided to retire unexpectedly. What, in your own eyes, what has this journey been like for these guys?
It's definitely been one of the wildest calendar years, I think, in Carolina basketball history, as you said, going back to last year when Roy Williams retired. And I think the big thing for these players is a lot of people thought that it would just be Roy Williams 2.0. They thought that Hubert Davis was going to run the same sets. He was going to run the exact same offense, do the exact same things. And I think he made it clear pretty early that he wanted to mold the UNC program in his own image. And that's not a bad thing. Everybody kind of wants to put their own imprint on it. He wants to keep the foundation, I think, of what Carolina basketball is there, and then kind of renovate, for lack of a better phrase. So that's kind of what he's done. And the beginning of the year, you could see kind of the issues, on the court and then behind the scenes of trying to do things a different way from what everybody was used to. And it just took a little bit of time for things to start clicking. It took some changes. It took some guys accepting new roles. It took really buy-in, I think, was the main thing. And then they got on a roll. I think they had a stretch in late January where they played 4 games in about 7 days. And I think that was the beginning of the turn. In the middle of February, that really was the final catalyst to put this team on the path towards where it is now.
Yeah, just from my own perspective, watching this team back in December and January and even into February, if you told me then that this team was going to be a Final Four team, I would have told you you're out of your mind. What do you think has kind of changed during the course of that time they've caught fire, frankly, and now are on this incredible run? What was it during that time that kind of changed in your own eyes?
I think they became interested in defense. Maybe interested is probably not the right phrase, but they started playing better defense. I think that was a huge catalyst. I think RJ Davis becoming kind of the lead guard, the primary ball handler, the primary distributor, was a big deal. That freed up Caleb Love to kind of do what he does best, which is take and hit tough shots. And then Manek being inserted into the starting lineup once Dawson Garcia left was huge because his passing, his high basketball IQ, and his shooting have been the perfect complement to Armando Bacot. So really, once those guys, the starting 5, started playing together pretty much 35 to 36 minutes a game, it was almost forced chemistry because they didn't have a ton of viable alternatives. But once that started, you could see the growth, and it wasn't linear. It didn't, just didn't go in a straight line. There were ups and downs, but you could start see them, playing better really as early as the Virginia game back in, I think it was early January. You could see the signs of a good team. It just took some time for it to fully round out.
I want to talk a lot about the evolution of the team that you're just hitting on. Speaking on Brady Manek, too, that you mentioned him, he transferred in from Oklahoma last season. And I actually was going through my transfer rankings mid-season report, and he was one that I just couldn't help but put on there. I think I had him top 15. And frankly, looking back, I think I'm too low on that at this point. But from an insider's perspective, has he been a surprise to you? Did you guys expect him to be this valuable when he came in?
I think they knew they had something special just because of his shooting ability. I think what surprised people was how well he fit into the culture as a kid who really hadn't left Oklahoma his entire life for any, sustained amount of time, to come to Chapel Hill just last May and just immediately buy into what Hubert Davis was, his vision of the North Carolina program. So I think that surprised him. I think his passing ability maybe didn't show up on tape as much as people thought. He's an exquisite passer, and especially in the half court. I think a lot of the things that he does, they're something that you get from a player playing his fifth year. He knows the spots to be in. He kind of knows how to work his zone. He knows when to cut. He knows when to pop. And again, with Armando Bacot, the way North Carolina's playing now, there's so many pick and rolls, and they're using that middle pick and roll a ton. And it Manek's place in it is perfect because when Armando Bacot rolls to the basket, he receives the ball kind of in the middle of the court. He has a split-second decision. He can look out to Manek over in the baseline. He can kick it out on the wings to either RJ Davis or Caleb Love, who have improved their shooting tremendously this year, or he can kick it out to Leaky Black. And what Manek has done in those scenarios, he either pops out and he's tremendous at that corner three, or he cuts to the basket, and Black usually finds him about once a game, just cutting for a layup around the basket. So he really has just given Armando Bacot more space because guys have to honor him out into the corner, and it just helped them as a team tremendously.
Yeah, from again my perspective, it seemed like, especially after Dawson went out, like Armando has been Armando all season long. I think he's now tied for first or leading the country in double doubles as he's entering the Final Four. I think he has a chance to even tie the record. I'll have to double check on that. But Brady, since that Dawson Garcia departure, it's like he's, aside from Armando, he's become like the most reliable piece on this team, consistent day in and day out, especially shooting the basketball. That's been incredibly valuable for this basketball team. But funny enough, as you were telling me, there's a story behind him ending up at North Carolina, and it didn't seem like it was going to happen at one point. But how did that all unfold?
Yeah, so Hubert Davis takes the job. I think it was April 4th or something like that. And he immediately starts, contacting guys in the portal, contacting players who were at Carolina and went into the portal, Walker Kessler, and just trying to upgrade the roster to fit his own image. And the biggest part of that was he wanted to stretch four. As people know, Carolina's kind of played two traditional bigs for forever, essentially. And he wanted to switch to a more 1 in 4 out system. And Manek was kind of, the perfect four. So he identified really 3 guys, I think. Justin McCoy from Virginia, who ended up committing to UNC within 4 days of Davis taking the job. Christian Bishop, who was transferring from Creighton, and then Brady Manek, who's transferring from Oklahoma. So the way it kind of worked out, UNC made it clear that because McCoy had already committed, they really had one spot for another 4-man. And Christian Bishop, had talked to Hubert Davis, had good conversations. Brady Manek, the same thing. But I think it was Christian Bishop ended up committing on a Saturday, and he announced that he was going to commit on, I think that was a Thursday evening. And North Carolina, again, made it clear they only had one spot. And the intel or the information we were getting was that it was Kansas, Texas, and UNC. And that he wasn't too keen on, going to Kansas because he's from there. He's from around that area. And that North Carolina kind of had a leg up. But I think his decision to announce when he was going to announce his decision gave UNC some ammunition to say, hey, Brady, we like you, but we think we're going to get this kid on Saturday. So here's your chance. And Brady Manek committed that Friday, a day before Bishop was set to commit.
Straight stole the spot from him. That's funny, man. But obviously it worked out very much into this North Carolina team's favor. I guess if you want to call it his front court teammate, obviously Brady plays a lot on the perimeter, but Armando Bacot, shifting to him. Again, I was just telling you, I think he's tied again for first in the NCAA in double doubles. Just been an absolute machine down low. And as you were saying earlier on Hubert Davis, he kind of is trying to put his own flavor to things. But at the same time, there's things that have stayed the same. Armando Bacot and having a dominant post player, especially on the glass, has stayed the same for Hubert Davis, just like it was the case for Roy Williams. Where would this team be without Armando Bacot?
Oh, it's not an NCAA tournament team. I mean, they struggled for some time to get to the NCAA tournament even with him. But, I think they're sub 500 without him. He's been by far their most valuable player just because what he does allows everybody else to do what they do. There are no Manek really threes. There's no Manek cutting. There's not Caleb Love with the ability to go one-on-one if there's not the threat of Armando Bacot on the post. And he's had moments over the last couple of years where he's really shined bright. The biggest issue for him was consistency. he, either got hurt, turned an ankle, or just wasn't able to do it, pretty much every single night. His freshman year, he had a game against Oregon in November. And I mean, he looked like a top 10 pick. He had like 25 points, 15 rebounds, 6 blocks. And you're thinking, okay, this kid is going to be a monster. He's going to be there for 1 or 2 years and then be out. And he got hurt. And so then in come Walker Kessler and Day'Ron Sharpe to go along with Garrison Brooks and Armando Bacot. And I think last year he was pretty consistent, but there would be every 5 or 6 games, there'd be a 4.6 rebound type game. And a part of that was there were so many other centers who were really good on the roster. And a part of it was he still needed to grow. I think this year he has combined all that, the talent, the shape, the new system, all that has worked towards his benefit. He is the centerpiece of everything they want to do. And that's why I think he's had such a productive year, just because it's growth over, 1, 2, 3 years from his senior year in high school. Again, you look at him now, you look at his senior year in high school, and he's just done so much to transform himself into, what he is now, which is an All-American.
Absolutely. I mean, that was when I actually first started watching him. I believe it was probably his junior year of high school. Then he ended up at IMG for his senior year. Was he there for more than 1 year at IMG? I can't remember.
Just the 1 year.
Yeah. So upon getting there, like you're saying, he completely transformed his body. And you have to give him an immense amount of credit for the amount of work he put into doing that, and not only doing it for just 1 year, but to sustain it. We see it all the time where kids get in shape for a small spurt of time and then they continue to fizzle out. But he maintained this, and honestly, that's played a huge, huge part in his production at the college level. So just immense credit to him and the hard work that he's put in. Now shifting to the backcourt, I want to jump in with Caleb Love. I think you know this very well. I loved Caleb Love coming out of high school. And obviously he did not have the freshman year that we expected. But what in your own mind is it that kind of played a big part in this jump that he's made from that freshman season that was very underwhelming in a lot of ways? It was ugly at times. And honestly, I don't know many people know this. There's a point in time where he almost could have entered the transfer portal, but he obviously decided to come back. So what was that jump? What contributed to that jump for Caleb Love?
I want to jump on your point, though, about last year in the transfer portal. You talk about this team's journey. This team almost didn't look like this at all because it wasn't just rumors. That people were talking last year. Obviously, Walker Kessler. So North Carolina loses to Wisconsin on a Friday. Walker Kessler announces his intent to transfer that Monday. And there were several others that we thought were coming, that we were prepared to write stories for, that we thought, would be there. And then the situation shifted and things settled down. And eventually guys started announcing that they were coming back. So just that 1 week alone could have changed a lot of what you see now as Carolina heads to the Final Four. But I think with Caleb, it was just so surprising that he shot so poorly as a freshman. I think a lot of that at North Carolina in the past, freshman shooters they just don't have it. And I don't know if it's college basketball, if it's this previous system, but there are just not many freshman shooters who have successful years. And Caleb, not only was it not successful, it was close to historically bad. And I think really what it was just tuning that up. He did a lot of work over the summer, just on his mechanics, his shooting ability, just, putting up tons of shots. I think Hubert Davis said he had all his players, I think it was 1,000 threes a week that they had to make over the summer, which just is a lot. And so he did that. He had to cut down on the turnovers. And then I think the system change was really beneficial for him as well, because as you know, he is an athletic attack first type guard. And in the previous way North Carolina played, it's no fault of anyone's, there just wasn't that kind of spacing on the floor for guards to get into the paint, for guards to kind of do their thing. They didn't quite have the freedom that they have now. So between his improved three-point shooting, the confidence that he received from Hubert Davis, I think you are now seeing him put some of the stuff together. There are still areas that he can really improve on, but the knockdown shooting, I mean, he takes and hits tough shots. And I think that's the most important biggest thing you can say about Caleb Love, because you can say a lot of things, but he has almost irrational confidence that he's going to make whatever shot he takes. And that's been big for North Carolina because I think before the season, it was kind of like, well, shot clock's running down, game's on the line, who gets the ball? I think right now he's proven that he's kind of the guy to do that for UNC.
Yeah, when he first came in, we talked a lot about where does he kind of rank up alongside the really good guards that they had previously, like a Cole Anthony, like a Kobe White. If Caleb and it's looking like he could be a first round draft pick now, especially with the way he's played the past couple months. Um, Obviously, it took a little longer than we thought, but if he does end up in that NBA draft, and this is going to be the last potentially 2 games that he plays at North Carolina, what will you guys remember him for?
Yeah, I think he'll be hitting those big shots. Hitting those big shots and the growth that he has. I mean, he's come so far from where he was at the first game of the 2020-2021 season to now. Completely different player as far as turn. I mean, he was a walking turnover last year, and it was a struggle. I mean, him and RJ Davis struggled a lot last year just holding on to the ball, the most basic thing. And so to see them come around from that to now being kind of fully formed and confident, taking big shots, the way he took over in that UCLA game, he's done that 5 or 6 times this season, where it doesn't matter what he did in the first half. All that mattered was those last few seconds. The Syracuse game at UNC towards the end of the season, that second half, he struggled. I think he was maybe 2 of 10, 2 of 12, something like that. And the kid just comes in and hits 2 threes, just huge shots from 25, 26 feet. And it's like he forgot that he missed all those shots in the first half. So I think that's huge. I think people will remember him from that. Just big time shots in big situations, and then the growth he's had over the course of 2 years.
You just touched on his backcourt teammate, his partner, RJ Davis. Similarly, he's had some rocky times, but he's slowly and surely been figuring it out since being at North Carolina. He was one player that I remembered in high school. He was always aggressive. And similar to Caleb, he had a lot of confidence that he played with. Foot was always down on the gas pedal, and he had this mindset that any shot that he took, it was going to go in. So with that mentality and his steady progression as a point guard for this team, how important has he been for this North Carolina basketball team?
He's been massive because, as we talked about, freshman guards at North Carolina, it's a struggle, and both of them struggled, and I don't think they were really sure who would be the primary ball handler this year. They talk about playing multiple point guards and all that, but eventually someone has to kind of be the guy at the lead guard spot. And his ability in pick and roll, to just tweak things, to change things, to split defenders, to have pocket passes, cross court passes. He has a lot of stuff in his arsenal that has helped North Carolina's offense start to hum. And I think that's the biggest thing. Just his ability in pick and roll it has been tremendous. I don't want to say, I don't want to be give too many compliments, but it's really, really good right now. And the thing about RJ Davis when it comes to UNC is that because of his height and because of his size, his pro aspirations are limited, compared to Caleb Love. And so you can start to see his trajectory as a college point guard. And it's kind of like, if he's doing this as a sophomore, can you imagine, what he'll look like in a couple of years? A lot of Carolina fans liken him to Marcus Page, who was an All-American at UNC from 2012 to 2016. And I could see that kind of career trajectory going for him just because he's figured out a lot of things very quickly. And then again, the system change was beneficial for him too.
Yeah. And then now shifting to Leaky Black, who has been a staple for North Carolina for some time. He's been there now for 4 years. If you look at the stat sheet, he's not going to impress anybody, especially your average fan. Like, why is this guy who's averaging just 4 points and 4 rebounds starting for this basketball team who's in the Final Four? But he brings a lot of intangibles. What is it that makes him so valuable?
If you look on, for those who follow KenPom, and you look under Leaky Black, he is in the nearly invisible usage rate category on offense. I always find that funny. But Leaky, I mean, you said it. He's been a part of the Carolina program for almost 6 years now. he committed December of his December of his junior season. So he's been around for a long, long, long time. He was in the class with Kobe White and Nasir Little, if that informs about how long he's been there. And he was brought in originally to be a point guard, a 6'7", 6'8" point guard. And because they had Kobe White and because they got Cole Anthony and because they got Caleb Love, he never became that full time. And so he switched off to the wing. And the idea they had for him was kind of a jack of all trades guy who could hit the occasional, pull up three, who would be a defensive stopper, who could get you 5 or 6 rebounds, 5 assists, a block here, a steal there, that kind of player. And for the first 3 years, he again just couldn't do it consistently. I think there were some confidence issues. I think maybe at times he didn't quite understand his role, what he was being asked to do or what he wasn't being asked to do. But this year, it all has started to click. And sometimes in scouting and in basketball, it's not a year, it's not 2 years, sometimes it's not 3 years, sometimes it's that 4th year. Even for a player like Cam Johnson, who played for UNC back in the day, it was his 5th year when he really became NBA prospect Cam Johnson. So that's kind of where Leaky has been. And he's been tremendous on the defensive side of the ball. His energy defensively, what he does, I think permeates the entire team. We talked earlier about how the switch for them really is when they started to defend. I think Leaky was the catalyst for that. I mean, he's guarded everyone this year, from Jaime Jaquez to Johnny Juzang to Paulo Banchero to Jeremy Roach to anybody from Kentucky to Kennedy Chandler. I mean, he's guarded all types of different players and mostly been very successful, especially these last 2 months. I mean, he's done a great job, usually on the opposing team's best wing, but because of his size at 6'7", 6'8", sometimes they let him guard a 4, and because of his size at 6'7", 6'8", like against Virginia, they put him on Kihei Clark, who's 5'9", 5'10", so he can do it all defensively, and I think that's been the biggest thing for him for UNC this season. Is just kind of a racer, is what they're starting to call him, because he has had some guys put up some poor shooting numbers against them, and it's not just been 1 or 2 or 3. We're talking 7, 8, 9, 10 games in a row now.
Yeah, he has been that stopper. He's going to have his hands full this weekend when they face off with Duke. We hear it all the time. They got a variety of weapons. They have 4 or 5 guys that could all get drafted in the first round. So his role this weekend, come Saturday, it's going to be as big as anybody, whether he's taking on Paulo Banchero or an AJ Griffin or a Wendell Moore, whoever it is that could be getting hot for that Duke team. He's that one guy that they can call upon. For Hubert Davis, making it to the Final Four in his first season as a head coach, what kind of stage does that set for him as he kind of continues to take these next steps with this North Carolina program and the projection of his ultimate career?
Well, I think that's a question I should be asking you, because really the recruiting trail was an area I think he did pretty well in last year, considering he didn't have much time to put together a class. Ended up with Seth Trimble, Jalen Washington, Tyler Nickel, and then Will Shaver, who enrolled at UNC this past January. That was his first class, in addition to Brady Manek, Dawson Garcia, and Justin McCoy. So he signed 7 guys within, I guess, his first 4 months on the job. And one of those guys is playing out of his mind in Brady Manek. So he's shown that he can work the portal. He's shown that he can recruit at a decent level. I think the thing he had to show was that he could coach. And now, after the way UNC played at the beginning of the season and the way they're playing now, I don't know how you can say, well, he can't coach or he can't push the right buttons, because he's gotten the team to play at its best when it's most important. So I think he has the ammunition now between saying, look, they've won 27, 28 games. They made a Final Four. He's been a decent recruiter. I think he has all the tools now to go out and try to recruit and get UNC back in the game with some of those top 5, top 10, one and done type players who traditionally have gone to UNC that maybe they haven't quite gotten as much in the last 5 or 6 years.